Hello. Welcome back to this seminar. There's a lot of housekeeping stuff to deal with first. Obviously, the panel have completely changed, and I will deal with that. We have a Skype connection going, which I will introduce a second later. I just want to try to situate this panel within the other talks first. First of all, the title of the talk is a conversation on post-communist Russian cinema. I'm an academic. I write about Russian cinema. I teach Russian history at a university here in Lvova, which is 100 kilometers away from here. I teach sort of film theory and history, and I always want to introduce some Russian films to my students, and they always hate it. They say, "Oh no, not more Russian films." But I think this is just because I'm the teacher and I'm saying so. Anyway, but I want to connect that image of Russian film not being very common for audience outside Russia. And I think that's an important theme that we should deal with when we have a focus on the film festival on Russian cinema. And this morning, I liked Sanjin's talk this morning where he dealt with Soviet and Russian film history, and he ended up screening a trailer for Fyodor Bondarchuk's latest blockbuster film. And I think he sort of ended on that kind of popular Hollywood mega commercial kind of cinema that is also Russian cinema. And this, just after lunch here, we were sort of introduced to the Pussy Riot group, Go's Wives production. And that kind of underground, or whether we can call it underground, is a question we maybe can discuss. But this kind of alternative filmmaking that is going on actively in Russia at the moment. So within this kind of extreme, the non-commercial and the big sort of very commercial, I hope that this panel would somehow come in between. So this panel will sort of be on Russian cinema that, or we can say cinema that we can problematize what is Russian cinema and on. I have with me on stage here some very prominent filmmakers, but both their films have been sort of used, but has been produced with co-production. So we can question whether they are, just because they are on a Russian theme, are they really Russian cinema? Or we can also question whether the filmmaker has to be Russian in order for a film to be Russian. We have here on stage, and I'm very pleased to welcome Vitalij Manskij, who's one of the veteran filmmakers in Russia on documentary cinema. He's here with his film Pipeline, which deals with a gas pipeline that goes from northern Siberia to Germany. Also with us, we have two filmmakers from Austria. We have Dominik Spitzendorf. Is that okay? Spitzendorf. And we have his wife, Yelena Tikhonova. Sorry. And you have made a film on electronic instruments in the Soviet Union. And I can say that you are also. Do you want to add something? No. Okay. Yeah. But you're also doing here a video or DJing session, yeah.
VJ set, yes.
I'm so old-fashioned. Anyway, I want to welcome you very much here, and I hope that we can sort of somehow go back to it, because now I want to address the people that we have in Moscow. Well, we should maybe, no, I should say, well, you can't see them, but they're sitting here on Skype and they can see me. should we play the clip first? There, yeah. So here we have Sergej, Taramajev, and Liubov, Lvova, who have made the film Winter Journey. Very welcome to you too. First, I want to address the people in Moscow, so we don't, so we get that kind of Skype thing sort of going in a sense, so we don't sometimes lose the connection. So we want to be there quickly, and then we will address more the issue of documentary for the panel here on stage. But first of all, I will want to play clips from the 3 films that we're going to talk about, so you can get a feeling of the films. And the first one out is from Luba and Sergej's film. It's called Zimny Put, Winter Journey. Okay. Thank you very much. This is a short clip to get you sort of in the mood. But now we're going to talk about the first film, which is called Zimny Put, A Winter Journey. And the first question I want to ask you about, Sergej and Lvova, is how did the film came about? What was the idea about making the film?
Как пришла идея сделать этот фильм и о чем он?
Я скажу о том, что нормально слышно?
Нет.
С какой-то задержкой.
Задержкой. Миша, у нас звук плохой. Сейчас.
Нормально.
Да?
Вначале мы были театральными актерами, потом мы ушли из театра.
At first we were working in the theater and then we left that.
И у нас возникло желание снимать кино.
We
Нигде не учились специально, ни сценаристами, ни режиссерами, но мы очень много смотрели кино. Можно сказать, что наш учитель Стэнли Кубрик.
We didn't study anywhere, but we watched a lot of films, different films, so you could say that our teacher was Stanley Kubrick.
До «Зимнего пути» писали несколько сценариев. Один из них уехал в Лос-Анджелес, другие остались здесь, но так легли в одно.
Не совсем понятно, можете повторить?
До «Зимнего пути» мы уже написали несколько сценариев.
Okay, before the winter journey we've shot a few different films.
Да, один из них не был реализован как фильм.
We've written a few scripts, but none of them was actually made into a film.
Идея «Зимнего пути» возникла в первую очередь от того, что я очень люблю это произведение Шуберта, вокальный цикл «Зимний путь».
The idea of the winter journey came about because I really like the piece of music by Schubert called The Winter Journey.
Так как я по первому образованию пианистка и аккомпанировала певцам.
Because my main education is musician and I was playing the piano and supporting the singers.
Потом мы услышали интервью такого замечательного контртенора Эрика Курмангалиева по радио «Эхо Москвы», который он давал за полгода до своей смерти.
Then we heard an interview of Eric Kurmangaliev on the Moscow radio that he gave half a year before his death.
Оно было таким хулиганским и при этом трагичным, что мы его послушали много раз. Вначале мы смеялись, а после 5-го прослушивания уже начали плакать. Потому что у человека нет никаких связей с социальным миром. Он вне социума.
It was very polygarchic and tragic, and we listened to it many times. At first we were laughing, but then it became sad because the person had no connection to the world.
Отсюда возник идея главного героя, который, будучи музыкантом, абсолютно не приспособлен к этой жизни.
This is where the idea of the main character came about for this film, for the winter journey, about a person who is a talented musician but is totally not prepared for the life in an everyday world.
А дальше сценарий стал рождаться сам собой. Мы увидели человека зимой на улице на снегу, который лежал без шапки. Мы ему отдали шапку, но он вдруг неожиданно очнулся, стал защищаться. Но статистика огромная людей, замерзших просто в городе, мимо которых проходят все мимо, и они никому не нужны.
The rest of the film came together by itself. We saw a man in the snow on the street, and we gave him a hat, but he then suddenly came about and started tried to protect himself because he thought that we were attacking him. But there is a huge statistics of people who get frozen in winters just on the streets. And people walk by and don't pay attention.
При этом сами мы живем на окраине Москвы, в Очаково, и постоянно сталкиваемся с такими персонажами, как Леха. Крайне.
Lvova is a character in the film.
We live in the north of the Moscow, and we come across a lot of characters similar to Lvova.
Итак, сейчас идея совместить несовместимое. Столкнуть двух героев, эти два мира. Мир музыки в лице Эрика и мир
человека, который не имеет дома.
Человека с улицы, не имеющего дома.
This is where the idea of the film came together, to collide those two worlds, a world of a very creative musical person, Eric, and the world of the person who has no home.
This is where I want to come in and ask you the second question, which is regarding the two main characters, Eric and Lvova. Because for me, it seems like they're both sort of kind of exiled, they're both kind of homeless. Now, Lvova is in a literal sense homeless, but Eric is in a kind of internal exile because of his sexuality. Do you agree with that reading?
Да, это прочтение. Все речь о внутреннем одиночестве, об одиночестве музыкантов, поэтов. Ну, одним из прототипов был также герой, то есть не герой, а реальная личность, рок-музыкант Курт Кобейн.
Yes,
И это не касается конкретной ориентации или бездомности, это просто состояние внутри человека.
Yes, this is kind of correct. It's about loneliness, the loneliness of creative people, of musicians and artists. One of the prototypes for the character was the musician Kurt Cobain. It's nothing really to do with being homeless or your sexual orientation. It's the loneliness that created the character.
My third question is around the theme of activism, whether the film can, or whether the film is good as an activist tool, in a sense. Do you think yourself the film as performing some kind of activism in contemporary Russia with regard to this sort of laws against gay propaganda, etc.?
Эрик, да, главный герой наш, он сексуалист. Но мы ставили исключительно художественные задачи, чтобы подчеркнуть его конфликт с обществом. К сожалению, законы, когда мы снимали фильм и писали сценарий, этого закона не было.
И фильм случайно потом попал под эту цензуру. То есть я хочу сказать, что законы приходят и уходят, а искусство остается. И нам абсолютно не важно. Мы не хотели как бы ни с чем бороться. У нас не было такой задачи.
Переводчик.
Мы ставили в первую очередь художественные задачи. И гомосексуализм главного героя нам был необходим для того, чтобы подчеркнуть его конфликт и одиночество, конфликт с обществом.
The main priority was creative of the film and creating an art rather than trying to raise any questions. We needed the main character to to be homosexual, to underline the loneliness and exile of that state, but not to put up any activist propaganda or questions. The laws change and come in or or get cancelled, but this was more sort of an art work rather than a political. We started shooting the film before the law came about on propaganda being banished and against law.
Very good, thank you very much. I have one last question, and it's about the reception of the film in Russia. Can you tell us a little bit about how the film has been received?
Ну, к сожалению, мы еще не стали, может, не знаю, к сожалению или...
Фильм выходит в прокат 20 февраля только. А пока мы сталкивались с публикой на фестивалях. Фестивальная публика принимала очень хорошо. Есть уже свои фанаты, которые ходят по 7 раз.
The film will go live on the 20th of February, will be officially published. At the moment, it's only been shown on festivals and has been very positively received on festivals. We have some very hard fans who go to 7 screenings.
Фильм еще простая публика, простой зритель не видел. Фильм выходит в прокат 20 февраля. И там, возможно, нас ждут большие неожиданности, и хорошие, и плохие.
General public have not seen the film as yet. That will happen after the 20th of February. And that's where unanticipated things could come about, whether they'll be positive or negative.
К сожалению, пресса повесила уже ярлык на фильм «гей-драма», что нам не нравится.
Unfortunately, the press has already named the film as gay drama, which we don't really like.
15 копий, 15.
How many copies? 15. There is 3,000 screens in the country. But in America there is 45,000 screens, just to compare.
Нет, количество связано не с тем, что прокат ограничен. Просто тут, к сожалению, не очень умелая дистрибьюция. Это как бы вопрос к продюсерам.
The problem is not the limited showing of the film, but more the issue of the distribution of the film.
Огромное спасибо. Thank you. Please stay online, but now I'm going to speak to the people on stage. Of course, there will be. I will leave time for questioning from the audiences, and hopefully, we will still have a connection with Moscow, so you will be able to ask questions to Sergej and Lvova. Okay. Now, obviously, this is a kind of shift from not only Moscow to here, but also from fiction films to documentaries. Now, I don't consider that step very far. But I want you, Vitalij and Dominique and Elena, to just talk about, in the same kind of terms that Sergej and Lvova talked about, the origin of your films. So where did your idea for this film come, and how was it sort of realized? Vitalij first, please.
Для меня идея почему мы такие, а вы такие, почему между нами, на мой взгляд, пролегает непреодолимые преграды, почему очень многие из России и даже из бывших стран Советского Союза пытаются уехать в Европу, но мало кто из Европы пытается приехать в Россию жить. Спасибо.
To me, the purpose of the film is really to seek the place of Russia in today's world, to try and speculate on questions why we are like that and you're like this, and why there is, in my opinion, such a huge hole between, such a huge distance between Russian people and European people, and why so many Russians and post-Soviet citizens want to go and live in Europe, but not many from Europe come to live in Russia.
Знаете, вот в России есть такой термин евроремонт. Вам, наверное, он мало понятен.
In Russia, there is a term, Euro repairs. It's not very easily understood.
Вот мы в своем подъезде в Москве сделали евроремонт.
But in our communal staircase in the house, we did this Euro reparations, Euro repairs.
У нас в подъезде живут новые русские и старые русские.
We have new Russians living in the house and old Russians.
Старые русские живут в коммунальных квартирах, новые в отдельных квартирах.
Old Russians live in communal flats, shared flats, and new Russians live in separate flats.
Так вот, старые русские, когда был сделан евроремонт, чтобы чувствовать себя на родине, поверх этого евроремонта написали на стенах слова, которые делают их жизнь более комфортной. Написали там матерные слова на лифте, так, везде, чтобы как-то чувствовать себя как дома. И это очень серьезный конфликт.
So when this maintenance was done, this Euro restoration was done, the old Russians wrote words on the walls and the lifts that made their life more comfortable, the swear words, and that's the problem, that's where the conflict lies.
И вот с этим конфликтом мы живем последние 1000 лет.
And with this conflict, we live for the last 1,000 years.
But you have a strong sort of sense of connection anyway, so you do connect by writing on the wall, so you're trying to communicate anyway. And I think that's why I chose the clip, it's some urge to communicate. Was that sort of something that you wanted to say with the film, that we need to communicate more, or we need to go over the barriers of not being new Russians, or?
Нет, мне кажется, больше уж некуда. Это картина о непреодолимом конфликте культур, ментальностей и наших взаимоисключающих путей развития.
No, there can't be more communication. This film is about a huge conflict of personality, mentality, and understanding of people that cannot be breached through, that cannot be overcome.
But if I can jump in and say that, or ask more literally, did you, when you thought about this film as a sort of portraying this pipeline that go from north of Russia to Western Germany, did you go into the map and pick a spot and then go in with a film crew and then portray the people?
Вы знаете, мы, конечно, взяли карту. На этой карте существует линия газопровода. Мы в каком-то смысле присматривались к этой линии, но она не была для нас определяющей. Это фильм более, для меня это более условное путешествие из одного мира в другой мир.
Of course, we used the map, and on the map you could see the gas pipeline, and this was kind of a guidance, but we didn't always stick to it. To me, that was more of, the film was more about about the journey from one world to the other.
Но только не нужно наивно полагать, что это путешествие из плохого мира в хороший. Оба мира плохие.
But you can't naively think that it's a journey from bad world to good world. Both worlds are bad.
Счастья нет нигде.
No one is happy.
Но по разным причинам.
But for different reasons.
Very good. Thank you very much, Vitalij. We have to come back to that, I'm sure, but maybe somebody in the audience would like to disagree with you. Anyway, I want to address Dominic and Elena. Please tell us about how your film came about.
Where I come from. Or
What was the original idea about the film, and how do you came about making it?
Ты хочешь ответить? Я вижу, я могу. Нет, говори.
So, actually, regarding to what Vitalij said, I'm one of the few Europeans that came from Europe to Russia, at least for 3 years. I mean, so I'm rather an exclusion. And we met with Elena in Moscow at the film university there. And we just had a common friend who first told us the story about the origin of the Soviet synthesizers. It's Richard Norviller. He's also in the movie. He is not only a musician, but also a psychotherapist and a philosopher. So he has a very unique approach to these instruments. And we were quite fascinated by what he was telling us, and all these instruments being not perfect and being built out of not properly working parts. And he was like spinning this philosophy around it, that they are just like life in Russia is. So
there was a byproduct of military industry. Yeah. So there are parts that not go to planes or tanks or stuff like this. Goes to music instruments.
So we very much liked it, and we did further research on it to find out what is really behind it. And so we found a lot of stories actually that had somehow a common topic and a common a background. And so this movie happens. We made this movie.
It's a history. So through the music and through this instrument, we told a story about Soviet. So we, as Vitalij said, we also want to understand with this movie why the Russian is that there is. So and we think that it was a nice metaphor with this synthesizers and music, how their life in Russia actually worked.
Yeah. So it's not really a music documentary in that sense. It's more like an essayistic, author-driven, very subjective view on the topic, and like with this topic, so all these musical instruments and the people, the inventors and musicians involved in it, they like we tried to give more like this insight into what was it like living under this totalitarian regime and in the time afterwards. So it's like the musical instrument is the vehicle to tell the story.
But thank you very much. I want to sort of ask a follow-up question on that. And since you are also sort of video jogging and you are also performing, what is the difference? Is your film part of that kind of performance, or is it two separate kind of mode of expression, I would say?
Okay. Sorry for my
Okay.
English.
Okay. Sorry.
Really
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
I'm not really clean in the question.
What I'm looking into is this kind of film as one thing you screen on the screen, and you have an audience that sits in the dark, and you are the filmmakers behind it. You're not present in the scene. While you are, when you're playing your music or while you are performing, you have a much more closer reaction to what you are actually doing. And I want to sort of question whether there is a relationship between the two kinds of mode of expressing yourself artistically or
Да. Ну, аудитория — это же в основном просто люди, которые приходят потанцевать и развлечься, и это, конечно, не профессиональная публика, которая, ну, не тот... Да, но обычно, на самом деле, после нашего перформанса люди хотят смотреть фильм. Не знаю, ответите, я просто не поняла вопрос. Да, можно так сказать.
I mean,
Ну, не совсем реклама.
actually, it's
В фильме мало музыки, и мы стараемся этим восполнить.
In films, there is very little music, so we're trying to fill it up with performances. But when you have an audience, the audience in the music is not professional, is not.
I mean, yeah. Actually, it happened quite coincidentally that, I mean, we did the film, and we have been doing this DJ VJ things for many years actually. Before that, and we just have this collection of a lot of quite rare Soviet electronic music. And yeah, so it just happened that it was in Poland, in Wrocław, at the film festival, that we were talking to the programmers, and so we said, okay, we could also do like this party after the film, and it worked good because watching the film, some people might be a little bit disappointed that there is not a lot of music in it. So yeah, this is like the second part.
Very good.
Of, yeah.
Thank you very much. And maybe that would sort of lead me to sort of a quick sort of inquiry whether this kind of reception, Vitalij, what reception of your film, what do you expect your films to achieve within the audiences?
У меня, откровенно говоря, никогда нет никаких ожиданий по поводу восприятия моего фильма аудитории.
To be honest, I never have any expectations about how my films will be accepted by the spectators.
Я вообще не очень понимаю, что такое аудитория.
To be honest, I don't really understand very well what do you mean by the auditorium. Or
Я знаю конкретный человек, к которому я обращаюсь.
I know a specific person that I'm aiming at.
Иногда это я сам.
Sometimes it's just me.
Кстати, когда я обращаюсь к себе, у меня неплохо получается.
And when I speak to myself, I do it quite well.
Maybe we should take questions from the floor then. Please. I have a question down here.
Okay, about this communication between audience and the film. How do people, other people, so individualistic in Russia that they just think for themselves what they experienced, or just speak with family in the kitchen and in the queuing lines and so on? Or are there more organized film cafes or film circles where people see film together and discuss them afterwards? And second question about how much is the film used in schools in education?
У нас, конечно, существует сеть кинопроката, которая на 90% ориентирована на массовый зрительский запрос.
Of course, we have a network of film renting that mostly aims at the mass general public and mass demand.
Это, конечно, процентов, наверное, 80 голливудский продукт.
And of course, 80% of this is Hollywood product.
И я слабо себе представляю дискуссии по этому поводу после фильмов.
And I can't really imagine the discussions about those films.
10% это европейское кино.
10% of this is European cinema.
И 10% это российское кино, которое хочет выглядеть как голливудское.
And 10% of that is the Russian cinema that wants to look like Hollywood.
И 0% это фильм «Зимний путь», «Труба» и все остальные хорошие фильмы. Я прошу прощения за подобное, так сказать, статистическую погрешность. То есть все хорошие фильмы в России – это статистическая погрешность.
And 0% are the films like Winter Journey, The Pipeline, and all the other good films. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry to say this, but the good films in Russia are statistical inaccuracy.
Но мы их очень активно обсуждаем.
But we discuss them very actively.
Very good. There was a question down here as well.
Thank you, Vitalij Manskij. I've seen many of your films in Leipzig, a lot of them, and I like them very much.
Thank you.
And for example, Pipeline I also saw in Leipzig, and that was very well received in Leipzig. And then I've seen earlier films like Wonderland and Private.
Chronicle Monologue.
Yes, I like that very
About
much.
my life film.
Fantastic.
Film about my life.
I know, but you said it was a bit fiction. Okay, anyhow. And then your trilogy about Putin, Gorbachev, and Yeltsin. So, would you say, have some of your documentary films have been prophetic, that things you have shown could have happened later on also in reality? Do you understand what I'm saying? Anyhow, you show reality, but also sometimes you show what's going to happen in some of your films, almost in the future.
Нет, вы знаете, мои фильмы просто являются реальностью.
No, you know, my films are reality.
I know, I'm a bit joking, but anyhow, I'm serious that some...
И я бы хотел, чтобы чтобы эти фильмы были обращены в сегодняшний день и в завтрашний, сегодняшний и вчерашний, но ни в коем случае не в завтрашний. Я бы не хотел жить так, как выглядит реальность моих сегодняшних фильмов.
And I would like those films to be pointing at the past and the present, but not at the future. I would not like the reality in the future to be like it is shown in my films.
Okay.
Я бы хотел сказать, что мои фильмы и вообще документальные фильмы, настоящие документальные фильмы, это хроники смутного времени.
I would like to say that my films and true documentaries are chronicles of changing times.
That's wonderful to see. So I want all them to be shown here in Sweden. But okay, I'm a bit joking, but anyhow, I think it's very interesting. I can never forget your films because they are so enigmatic. Okay, but maybe I should stop now. Thank you. Spasiba.
Пожалуйста. If you have questions for Sergej and Luba about Zimny Put, please up with your hands as well. They are here, aren't you? You're here.
Да, мы здесь.
What? More questions? Yes, down here.
Yeah, regarding Winter Journey, I was just wondering, have you had any, due to the anti-gay laws and so on, have you had any troubles when they're going on screen now on the 5th of February? Have you heard anything from the authorities or so?
Да, у нас есть такая бумага, которая называется
Прокатное удостоверение.
Прокатное удостоверение, и нам его не хотели продлевать. То есть мы его могли не получить, и тогда кино мы не смогли бы показывать в кинотеатрах.
Yes,
И на телевидении.
we have a paper called a rental permission, and okay, distribution permission, and the government didn't want to extend it, and if it wasn't to be extended, then we would have issues, obviously showing the film and distributing it.
И благодаря тому, что вмешались журналисты, критики, кинокритики, которые нас поддержали, Министерство культуры дало нам эту бумагу, это удостоверение.
And as the journalists and critics got involved and supported us, only thanks to that, that we received that paperwork that we required.
Сколько вы получили от государства на эту картину, на ее производство и ее прокат?
How much money did you receive from the government to make this film and
Нам государство вообще
to show
ничего не
it,
давало.
to distribute
Это у
it?
нас частный инвестор, который потратил свои деньги, и это $450 тысяч.
We had the government gave us no money. We had a private investment, and we got $450,000.
Well, I know that this film took 3 years in making, and 3 years ago, gay rights, so-called gay propaganda was not even mentioned. It was not in the center of kind of public discussion. And now, when the film is ready, the whole political situation has changed. Do you feel like your film is becoming much more political now?
Вы работали над фильмом 3 года, и буквально в последнее время был принят закон, когда этого не было. Чувствуете ли сейчас, что у него появилась новая политическая роль, политический аспект?
Да, когда нас спросили о том, являемся ли мы активистами, да, в этом вопросе, когда мы писали сценарий и снимали фильм, мы не активистами, но сейчас нас можно уже назвать активистами в этом вопросе, потому что для нас реакция в данном случае Министерства культуры и даже огромное количество друзей, которых мы считали солидарными в этом вопросе, возник такой конфликт, что мы сейчас, я не знаю, являемся... То есть, грубо говоря, от политики нам не удалось уйти в данном случае и принять позицию достаточно однозначную.
We were asked earlier whether we were activists. When we were shooting the film, we were not. We didn't have any political intentions, but given the response that we received from the Ministry of Culture of Russia and some of our friends, we feel that we couldn't avoid the bureaucracy of it.
I just want to come in here. This thing about funding is very much on the agenda, I think, for Russian cinema. It has always been sort of this kind of who gets support and who don't. I just want to direct the question to Vitalij, who's on stage here. Is film money for filmmaking from the government? Is it a way to politicize or to exclude some films?
В России построена такая вертикаль власти, что, в принципе, даже если тебе государство помогло снять какую-то картину, это абсолютно не значит, что эту картину можно будет в этом государстве показать зрителю, потому что все находится в руках у государства. Телевидение, кинопрокат, ну и все остальные институции.
The way it works in Russia is, even if the government gives you money to shoot a film, that does not mean that you will be able to show this film in that country, because everything is controlled by the government, the televisions, the cinema distribution, and all the other media.
I had a great question in my mind just now. Yeah. Another question from the floor, yeah?
Asked about if the government funding is a way of controlling. I think it's the government's policy, because the new Minister of Culture, he said we would only give money to the films which promote the right values and which would support the so-called the interest of the state. So the state in Russia obviously has its own interest, and they want the films to be kind of follow the line. And one pretty prominent filmmaker who was head of Landfilm and on good foot with the authorities, Manskij, he said that, well, you can't take the money from the state and criticize the state. You have to understand your responsibility. So this is a position of many, not all, but many filmmakers. If the state is giving you the money, you should not criticize too much, unfortunately.
Вообще говоря, сейчас в России по предложению Путина кинематографисты разрабатывают как бы сами для себя некую этическую хартию, которая должна сами кинематографисты создают правила, ограничивающие свои свободы. Цензуру, да, они сами своими руками сейчас прописывают цензурные своды.
In Russia at the moment, following the suggestion from Putin, the cinematographers are developing their own rules and limitations that they're going to be censored by themselves. So they're sort of affecting their own work essentially in the future and limiting it.
Во главе этого движения находится режиссер который хочет создать какой-то комитет по, я даже не знаю, по определению, кто соответствует этим этическим нормам, кто не соответствует, кому давать деньги, кого пускать в прокат, кого не пускать.
In the head of this committee is Nikita Mikhalkov, who is trying to create, I think, some sort of rule how to decide who will get the money and who won't, and which films will be shown and which won't be shown.
Вы простите, что я так просто упрощенно говорю, это очень объемная тема, но так, чтобы было понятно.
I'm sorry, I'm talking very simplified. It's a very big and important topic, but I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier to understand.
Вообще, на самом деле, мы живем более объемной жизнью, более непонятной. Для нас самих и для вас уж точно.
in reality, we live a much more complex life, complicated life, and not as clear life for us, for ourselves, but definitely for you.
Но это хорошая почва для создания интересных картин.
But it's a great ground to create fantastic films.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some more general questions about, do you have this problem of closing biographs and libraries because of people who want to go to movies and rent them or go to see films instead of reading books? And how much does it cost to go to movie in Russia?
Билет стоит от 5 до 20 евро в среднем в Москве.
The cinema ticket costs between 5 and 20 euros in Moscow and in Russia.
Кинотеатры открываются. Это, как мне кажется, неплохой бизнес открытие кинотеатров.
More cinemas are getting opened, which I think it's a good business to open a cinema.
Библиотеки не перевели на самофинансирование, но они будут реорганизовываться, если такие проекты, потому что люди не ходят в библиотеки, и это стоят пустые здания, как правило.
The libraries have not. The libraries are still government funded, but they will be changed because people don't go to the libraries anymore, and they're just standing empty.
Но у людей очень большая потребность в коммуникации, в получении доступа к настоящему, к современному актуальному искусству, скажем так.
But people have a very strong need to have access to real and today's art.
Но есть чисто технические и проблемы организации вот этой коммуникации.
But there are technical issues of organizing the communication.
И повторюсь, что сейчас начинает работать цензура, которая, ну скажем, некоторые фильмы российские, которые показаны в Гетеборге, невозможно себе представить их показ в России на сегодняшний день. Просто невозможно.
And of course there is the limitations to consider. Some of the films that have been shown in Gothenburg, one cannot imagine those being shown in Russia.
I think we are 4 minutes over time, but I think that would be a good note to end on. I just want to say that Winter Journey is screening tomorrow and Thursday. And I think it is Pipeline, Vitalij's film, is screening Wednesday. And Electro Moscow, Eliana and Dominic's films are screening Wednesday and Thursday as well. So please, this is a unique opportunity for you to watch these films. I'm very happy for this panel to have happened. I'm extremely happy that you were here with me, and I'm extremely happy to Sergej and Lvova that you were there in Moscow. I want to applaud them for being here and tell me their story. Please applaud them. Thank you very much, and see you soon.